Hello, 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 everyone. This is Dr. David. Welcome to Secrets of Ethical Influence, Secrets for Winning Clients and Closing Sales Faster Than Ever Before. For the next 2 to 3 hours, I will be your host as we go on a journey into some things that are both familiar and maybe not quite so familiar in the concept of persuasion. And today's emphasis will be more on business sides of things. I know a lot of times when we log on to these webinars, a lot of us have therapeutic applications in mind, or we have romantic applications in mind. Every now and then we get parenting. Today, I want to talk a little bit about something that's really, really important, and that's going to the bank, right? And going to the bank in life, which means being able to get the people to make the decisions to buy your product or service, to get people to trust and believe in you. And so that being said, today's class is going to focus on ethical approaches to getting people to really, really believe in you. Psychological tactics for ethically influencing humans to do pretty much whatever you want. How to gain massive rapport in minimum time. Secrets for accelerating trust and belief. Removing resistance and amplifying compliance very, very quickly. And we're going to teach you some of the hidden master keys for turning objections into opportunities. So I'm going to jump out of my PowerPoint just so you can see me face to face. And before we get into the body of tonight's content, the body of tonight's training, I'd like to know how many people are brand new to Planet David, where you're checking in from. Go ahead and post your name and how you found us and what you want to take away from tonight's training. And we'll go from there. Hold on a second. Let me find my other. And a quick shout out to my wonderful, loving YouTube members who are joining us from wherever they are in the world. So by all means, keep in mind, if you are joining us from YouTube, there is a bit of a lag between when I speak or do something on the video itself, because we are streaming from Zoom, versus when it shows up in your feed. So the real time, the chats, fortunately for us, are in real time. But yeah, so that being said, so let me just take a look at where all my newbies tonight. How many newbies we got? Got Deborah raising her hand. Welcome, Deborah. Type in the chat if you would. What is it you want to take away tonight? What do you want to learn? What do you want to be able to do as a byproduct from tonight's training? Okay. Jack says, I've known this nut for 8 years. Yeah, we can't get rid of you. You're kind of stuck with us, right? By the way, just a quick marketing approach. You guys like the beard or not? Should I keep it or get rid of it? You tell me. Just type it in the chat. I'm good either way. I'm not married to it. My wife is, but I'm not. Okay, so you're gonna want to take some good notes tonight. I'm gonna cover some things. I'm gonna cover a lot of the things that I cover in Arsham says my beard is great. Everybody seems to like it. Stephen Michael King, thanks for all you do, David. You're welcome, Stephen. Haven't heard from you in a long time. Catherine loves it. Okay. All right. So far, it seems to be pretty positive. So Deborah's saying she would love to learn how to read people. Well, that's kind of a byproduct of what's going to happen tonight. You're going to learn a lot about how to read people's inner world. Kitchen says get rid of it. Oh, Blanca says new to your channel, just subscribed last week. So I've got one against and a bunch for. I'm not going to be offended either way, right? My wife keeps wondering how a 58-year-old can look so young. Not my wife, my daughter, I should say. But anyway, so let's talk about rapport. So just now, one of the things I want to go over as we're going through the content of tonight's webinar is I want to emphasize there are certain things that are universals. There are certain things that you're going to be doing regardless of context. I've spent the better part of my life designing systems that can be transplanted into any context. Now, when you promote something like that, you have to niche it. Like this is the CPI killer influence system for selling. This is the CPI killer influence system for dating. This is the CPI killer influence system for therapy and coaching. It's the same system, right? But because most people don't think at this global level, you have to present things in a way that they can relate to it. And that's the very first thing that I want to talk to you about creating ethical influence. There has to be a match. There has to be a synergy between what you're presenting and what the person is looking for. If this were a marketing class, we would talk about having entering the conversation inside of the subject or the buyer's mind. What I'm going to share with you tonight is some simple, effective ways to get a snapshot into the buyer's mind so that you can create your narratives in compliance or in accordance with what's going on inside their head and their heart. Because if you can capture a person's heart, then you have the ability to lead them pretty much wherever you want them to go, and they'll think they're the ones leading. Okay. So that being said, a couple of things you're going to want to do tonight. By the way, nothing in this class, and I can, even though we are a webinar, right, and we are going to be teaching you, and we're going to have offers and all that stuff. Nothing in tonight's webinar is theoretical. This stuff has been proven over and over and over again in every form of persuasion and influence environment you can imagine, from deep level interrogations to covert elicitations to sales and marketing, mediation, negotiation. These principles work, okay? Because human beings, even though our technology has evolved dramatically over the last several hundred years, our physiology and our psychology really hasn't. So the same things that pushed our buttons 1,000 years ago are just as true today, because human neurology simply doesn't evolve that quickly. The needs and desires that get us out of bed in the morning haven't gone away. That being said, there's going to be tremendous power in the techniques and the tactics I'm going to share with you. My belief, my hope, is that you will use these things in the spirit with which they're being shared with you. And what I mean by that is in terms of a win-win situation. If you apply the philosophy that we do with the killer influence system, and by the way, I should talk about the killer influence system really, really quickly. The killer influence system is not killer as in murder, it's killer as in cool, right? And we named it that because A, it gets your attention and it stimulates your reptile brain. But the reason that we keep talking about the system because it's about moving through the world, making everyone you meet feel ridiculously good, and showing them the fastest, easiest way to get what they want. So by doing what you want. Now, is that okay? Are people okay with that? Because if you're not okay with that, you shouldn't be on this webinar. So type in the chat, I'm okay with that. Okay, just so I know. This is a very interactive class. You're going to want to take lots of notes. You're going to want to make sure you have caffeinated beverages and things to feed your brain, so to speak, right? Lots of our chats going on over here. So Ryan's okay with that. Enrique Santos, okay. Good. Asham says, I also have a chapter and book that I'm working with, Flirt Like a Serial Killer. Yeah, I'm not sure how I feel about that, Arsham, quite frankly, but we'll see. All right, so a couple of more administrative things, then we're going to get into a deep dive into this idea of this concept of rapport, what it is, how it is, what it is not. Because a lot of people, when we talk about rapport, they think rapport is about liking, and it really isn't. Rapport is about a type of connection that you have with another person's nervous system that causes information to flow back and forth, both consciously and other than consciously. We're going to talk about how that can be leveraged, but there's other things that go with that. Because one of the things that you can be in rapport with somebody and not trust them, right? How many people here by a show of hands have ever been attracted to somebody they just didn't trust? True, not true, right? So, and again, whether you raised your hand or not, we've all had people that we've been attracted to and we wanted to believe in them, but for some reason there was just something below the surface that just would let us know that this isn't somebody that we can go on. So one of the things I want to talk about a lot in this class is going to be something called authenticity and value sharing. We're going to talk about a concept called identification. We're going to talk about a concept called transportability. We're going to talk about hacking the neurology from an entrepreneurial mindset, how to create very powerful levels of sameness and connection. But we need to understand this concept of trust. And trust is about a feeling of sameness between you and another person, where and an energy of predictability, where there's just an automatic assumption that when this person tells you something, that it's true, and that they're actually going to fulfill what they say. Now, one of the ways that you can begin to create this energy of trust is through a concept we call authenticity. Okay, so I'm opening a bunch of loops at the beginning of this webinar that hopefully I will close by part 3 of the webinar. And while I'm on that idea, let's talk about the structure of tonight's training. We divide our webinars into 3 parts. Part 1 is the foundations phase. This is where we're going to give you the principles and the ideas and the core techniques that you're going to need to go out there and actually make change in terms of people's behaviors, beliefs, whatever it is that you're seeking to do. Part 2 is next steps phase. This is where we're going to show you, this is like the techniques that we've shown you in Foundation 1 come from this system right here. So to get the entire system, this is what we've put together for you. We call this the offer phase, or the next steps phase. Part 3 is applications phase. So we've got foundations where we've laid part 1. We've got how to get the whole access to the entire system in part 2. And then we have the applications and next and progressions phase. And phase 3 is really where it gets kind of cool. Because phase 3 is where we say, okay, what do you as a group want to learn most about? What application is your primary focus? And how can we take the foundations that we've laid in part 1 and build on that to give you some solid tools and practices that you can take out into the real world and start applying instantly while you're waiting for your courses and things of that nature. Okay, so that's how we structure this. Okay, if this is the scope of everything there is to learn in the field of human influence and persuasion, we've got time for this much. So my promise to you, my commitment to you, is that I will take you as far down this ethical and humane influence and persuasion rabbit hole as humanly possible. I will teach you as much as I can in the time that we have, and I will point you in the direction of next steps, where to go to begin to actually amplify your influence and take it even further. Does that sound like a fair trade? If you feel like that's a fair trade, go ahead and type that in the chat for me, so I know. And by the way, I'm very much a believer in interactiveness. And while we're on the subject of interactiveness, remember that you're going to have questions, and I love questions. The problem is that the more questions I get, the more off topic I tend to get pulled. So there's 2 or 3 ways that you can get those questions answered. The first is type it in the chat. If it's relevant to where we are in the chat, then I'll answer the question and then I'll move on as quickly as I can. If I see the question and it's not relevant to the content of tonight's training, or it's going to take us in a direction that is not useful, or if I just plain don't see it, then I may not answer the question. But for those of you who are veterans in Planet David, veterans, please do give me a thumbs up, your name, and how long you've been a veteran of Planet David. If you veterans see the question being asked and you have experience solving that problem or answering that question using the technologies that we teach in Planet David, then please, by all means, reach out to them in a way that's not going to completely distract them from the content of tonight's webinar, and answer that question for them, right? We're a community. We're here to help and support each other. And to me, having the community is perhaps one of the most important pieces missing from most people's persuasion training. Most of us are like wandering nomads in the desert, afraid to talk to people about this stuff for fear that we might get burned at the stake or whatever, right? So you're in a safe place. This is a cool place to be. And I love this concept. I love these topics. I could talk for hours and hours and hours about this stuff. And I really do geek out on it. And it's changed the course of my life in multiple ways. And I'm not sure how many of you know this, but when I started out as a preteen and early teen, I was the classic bullied kid. I was the one who always got picked last for sports, was bigger around than he was tall, was always the brunt of some joke or some kind of verbal bullying on the bus. And I remember very, very clearly one night in my room, after having had my heart broken yet again by people I thought were my friends and who actually wanted me around, but were actually scapegoating me. I remember looking up to the heavens and making a commitment that I was never going to be powerless again. I was going to find a way to become the most irresistible, persuasive, knowledgeable human being I could on the subject of and I didn't have the words I'm using now back then, but I had that deep need to transform my life, and I couldn't, and there was nobody in my immediate family that could teach me, so I had to go looking for this stuff. And I was very lucky in my life to find people who could give me pieces here and there, and those are the things that have transformed my life, and these are the things that I want to share with you on tonight's webinar. But lest you think I came out of the womb blessed with some ability to influence and persuade, oh nay, nay, right? I've been hurt, I've been betrayed, I've been lied to many, many times, just like you have. And so we're all in this together, so to speak, okay? Now, I don't know why the universe inspired me to share that with you, but somebody out there needed to hear it, and so I just go with my gut on that. That being said, my last disclaimer is this. If politically incorrect language, colorful metaphors, swearing, or the word boobies offends you, this is not the best use of the next 3 hours for you. I'm going to take you into some very deep topics tonight, some of which would not be viewed by members who are more on the woke side of the fence as cool. But it is the way the world is, and you will never make the world the way you want it to be until you're willing to accept it and deal with it the way it is. So there are certain things that we're going to talk about tonight, especially when we get into something called the identification principle, that may rub people the wrong way. But this is not about an idealized version of the way the world should be. This is about dealing with the world the way it is. Because until you can do that, you are not going to have the ability to change the world, not to the degree that will satisfy you. Okay, you're going to be more frustrated than you won't if you don't apply what I'm going to share with you tonight. Does that make sense? Are we kind of all on the same page with that? If you're with me so far, go ahead and type that in the chat. Cool. All right. All right. A lot of enthusiasm in the YouTube channel. All right. By the way, Tana, thank you so much for that amazing donation. Appreciate that. I love you. All right. So let's talk about something. Let's just start with the Dr. David Dog and Pony Show. I'll move as fast through the basics as I can, and then we'll get into deeper waters, if you will. Now, by a show of hands in the chat, though, how many of you are somewhat familiar with the art and science of storytelling? If you have some background in that, go ahead and just type me in the chat. Because one of the things I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be sharing with you techniques that are from some of our other courses aside from Killer Influence. And I will tell you right up front that the most powerful influence technique on a global, on a mass scale is storytelling and narrative persuasion. But there are certain things that must be done when you're going to use narrative persuasion, i.e. storytelling, if you want to create the maximum amount of psycho-emotional leverage in a human being. Okay, so I'm going to save some of that. Again, I'm opening a lot of loops because I want you to stay till the end of the webinar to understand how to build narratives that are very compelling. Okay. Can I give you a basic summary of the understanding of the science of storytelling? Yes, but it would take us very, very quickly off topic. So I want to go ahead and just jump into content with you guys tonight. So pardon if my screen jumps around. I haven't decided if I want to sit or stand for tonight's webinar. So I'm going to go back to the PowerPoint. We're going to move through the intro stuff as quickly as possible. We're going to get into foundations and fundamental techniques. And then we're going to talk about some of the most powerful extra things that we can do to create very powerful levels of rapport, connection, things of that nature. Let's see here. Okay, so first of all, tonight's webinar is all about gaining massive rapport in minimum time, accelerating trust and belief, removing resistance, and amplifying compliance very, very quickly. We're going to talk about the hidden master keys for turning objections into opportunities on demand. So who is Dr. David Snyder and why should I care? Well, first and foremost, I am an actual doctor. I actually have 2 doctorates, a master's degree and an associate's degree. I have a doctorate in Chinese acupuncture and Oriental medicine from Pacific College of Oriental Medicine. I also have a doctorate in Chinese energetic medicine from the Bianhuagong Temple here in California, which is a Buddhist Taoist training. For the last 7 or 8 years, at least, I've been among the top 2 NLP trainers in the world by globalgurus.org. I've authored over 15 different products, ladies and gentlemen, on various forms of human influence, everything from attraction, dating, and applications to persuasion and influence, to sales and marketing, to therapeutic conversational hypnosis. In fact, if you've been watching any of my videos recently on the channel, I've actually posted some very old content where you just see me just taking people's stuff away. I've had a practice I've had an active practice in Solana Beach, California for the last, well, since 2005, where my focus has been treating physiological illness caused by repressed emotion. So I've looked inside the hearts and minds of human beings in just about every context that we can think of. I'm even trained in kinesic interview and interrogation. I actually studied that in college, believe it or not. I've trained with Chase Hughes as applied behavioral mastery training, and I have a master certification in that. So I've got a lot of stuff going on here, and I want to share some of that with you. What you're seeing here, by the way, is a letter from, I think this was 2022. I don't have the letter from 2023. And it says, "Dear David, it is with great pleasure to announce that your training program, Killer Influence, which where a lot of these techniques are being drawn from, has been chosen by global peers and ranked as the #1 best program in the world for NLP for 2022. We've actually been the #1 NLP training program for 2023 as well. I'm still waiting to hear about 2024. And here you can see our little notice from 2023. I've also have a lot of years as a professional martial artist. I have a 10th degree black belt in Okinawan Kempo, a 4th degree black belt in Shaolin Kung Tao, 2nd degree black belt in Kosho Kempo, 1st degree black belt in Fang Kuru. I have a certified instructor training in combat systema under Kevin Sikor out of Montreal. I have a instructor certification in Cinco Mano Eskrima and Modern Arnis under the founder, Professor Remy Prisas, with the basic certification. And I've got more energy healing credentials than McDonald's sells hamburgers, right? I've been a Reiki master since before Reiki was cool. I'm an advanced chronic healer and chronic psychotherapist. I'm trained in advanced DNA theta healing and manifestation techniques, the Bankston energy healing system, as well as my doctorate in Chinese energetic medicine, which is medical qigong and shamanic healing practices. And the reason that this is relevant is for several reasons. One is I teach persuasion and influence the same way I teach martial arts, drilling and drilling and drilling, and then just putting you in scenario after scenario after scenario where you have to perform, where you actually have to demonstrate skills. And when you come to our live events, that's exactly the kind of training you're going to get. We treat persuasion like a martial art. We treat influence like it's something that actually matters, and you have to go out and you have to make this stuff work. Okay. What else? Why else martial arts? Because everything in the martial arts, neurolinguistic programming, Oriental medicine, and influence is all about one thing. It all distills down to 2 words: pattern recognition. Human beings do everything in a pattern. Everything human beings think, feel, behave has a structure to it. It has a beginning, a middle, and an end. It has transition moments. And if you have the eyes to see and the ears to hear, you can identify those patterns in a person's everyday speech, their facial features, their behaviors, and you can use those patterns to generate change. Now that change can be, they stop biting their nails, they stop doing drugs, or they buy your product or service. They're all behavioral changes. Okay. So when you ask, what do all the things I've talked about have to do with influence and persuasion? Pretty much everything, right? So is this class for you? Well, this is a list that I normally ask my students. If you can answer yes to any of these questions, you're in the right place. How many of you would like to be more attractive to the opposite sex and maybe have them find you charming, fascinating, and irresistible? If that's something that resonates with you, type yes in the chat. How many of you would like to banish fear and insecurity from your life and radiate confidence, assertiveness, and more power in your life? How would you, any of you, again, this is aimed at entrepreneurs primarily. How many of you would like to make more money at your job, book more clients for your business, get that raise or promotion that you know you deserve, right? Protect yourself from manipulation, right? How many of you would like to program yourself for massive financial abundance with more than enough money to buy the things you want and then some? Look, if you've answered yes to even 2 of these questions, you're in the right place. There's some other things I want you to think about, and these are more businessy. If you'd like the ability to tap into the deepest desires of your prospects or your customers, type "that's for me" in the chat. If you'd like the skills to create powerful and lasting relationships with your clients, type "that's for me" in the chat. If you'd like to have the knowledge to use advanced techniques and persuasion to close more sales and boost your business, you're in the right place. If you'd like to have the ability to actually, hold on a second, I lost my list. To use frame control to your advantage, to create the frames in people and have them and close more deals, you're in the right place. If you'd like to identify your target's prospects and hot buttons to increase more sales, welcome to class. This is going to be a very, very powerful lesson for you. That's just the beginning of where we're going to start. If you type yes to any of those questions, you're in the right place. Okay, so that being said, let's talk about some other things. One second. I'm trying to keep to my PowerPoint here as much as I can, even though I hate them. PowerPoints I find very limiting, but sometimes it's good to keep us on track. So here's what else we're doing. Hold on a second. For some reason, my PowerPoint keeps showing up in my, pardon me. I gotta move this down. There we go. That's better, somewhat. Okay. So if you stay on till tonight's webinar, I'm going to teach you. This is why I don't use PowerPoints, guys. The fastest, most powerful, and ethical way to influence anyone to say yes to you faster. And I'm even going to teach you a phrase that's more powerful than yes. I'm going to teach you how to build trust in record time, how to confidently and easily handle even the toughest objections, how to remove resistance to your influence, and give you the exact steps you need to go from interesting information to maximum transformation in minimum time. Does that sound like a plan? So let's talk about some of the things on tonight's agenda. We're going to talk about the secret backdoor into the human nervous system for creating unstoppable influence, maximum attention, focus, and concentration. These are the most powerful words any human being can hear at any given moment, and even you are not immune to them. Okay? I want to talk a little bit about the secrets of emotional bonding and attraction. In fact, I'm going to talk a lot about it tonight, maybe more so tonight than in any other webinar I've taught. We'll touch briefly on the 4 pillars of irresistible hypnotic influence, and we'll spend a lot more time on resistance removal. Now, while we're on the subject of resistance removal, I want to make something kind of clear that I don't normally take the time to point out. You only really need this when you screw up this. You see, if you learn how to unlock a person's emotional needs and bind them or bond them to your product or service in a way that they recognize what you're offering them, 90% or better of your objections will go out the window. I was doing a coaching class last night. I was teaching a coaching class to my advanced students, and one of the ladies popped in. She was on a smaller program. She came in and she asked me, what if you get the objection, I have to think about it? And I told her, and I don't think she believed me, right? But I told her I don't get that objection very much, okay? And here's why. If you perform with another human being, the operations that I'm going to teach you, you are literally going to open up their heartstrings, find out what their favorite song is, and play that song for them. So you will literally be sharing with them a way to get the things they most desire in their heart. And if they come up with the objection that I have to think about it, one of two things is true. A, you missed something, or B, they're not ready for it. There's something else they're not telling you. Like in the context of therapy and coaching work, when you get the I have to think about it response, more often than not, you miss their values, you miss their emotional needs. Okay, so I'm going to teach you how to get around that if you screw it up. But here's what my experience and the experience of many students that I've trained with is: when you perfectly bond a person's emotional needs and desires to your product or service, they will generate their own internal logic for wanting to move forward with that deal. Okay, so I'm putting that out there right up front. I will do some demos for you. Okay, in fact, I will put you through the parts of the process that I want you to guide other people through. Now, nothing in this webinar is theoretical. I don't want you to believe anything I say just because I say it. Okay, that's the beauty of these techniques, is they're based on mechanics. We spend a lot of time drilling down the techniques to a simple set of just do these things and you'll see the process activate. Okay, so that being said, let's talk about perhaps one of the simplest and yet most profound techniques that I've was ever fortunate enough to learn and to pass on. And that is called the echo technique. And this is what I would consider the bump key to the human nervous system. Okay, I'm going to elaborate a little bit more on why this works from the scientific side of things, probably in part 3. So you might want to stick around for that. But the most powerful words any human being can hear at any given moment are the words that just came out of their mouth. Now, the reasons for this are legion, but at the end of the day, I want you to think of it like this. When you have an experience, okay, your brain goes through an incalculable number of filtrations and processes to make that experience into something that you can think about, and then even more into something that you can communicate. So if you think of it like going from a very, very raw, massive data set into something that's very, very refined. Think of it like going from a 4 and 8K video file all the way down to a 10 megabyte file or 10 kilobyte file. That's basically what your nervous system is doing every moment of every day when you go through the process of cognition and communication. So what happens is you have this massive 8K pile of data that gets filtered and filtered and filtered and filtered and filtered until what comes out is a string of words. That's the 10K file, the 10 kilobyte file, which whoever hears that has to put back together. In other words, they have to go from 10 kilobytes to 10 megabytes to 10 gigabytes, all the way up until they in their mind, they think they've recreated what you mean. And the problem that we have is that what we create when we receive that 10 kilobyte communication from another person, we don't have the missing data that they filtered out to speak the words. So we start building what we think they said based on our own experiences, our own memories, our own beliefs and values, and everything that goes into how we think the world is supposed to be. And so when we reply, we assume that what we created in our own mind is what that person meant. And that's where miscommunication happens. But the way you circumvent that entire process, the way you make it work for you, is to use the exact words that that person uses. Okay. And here's why. Because the words that came out have passed through every single filter that that person had to come up with those perfect words that they're communicating to you. When they hear those exact words coming back, they start putting back all the information that they originally took out. And the person who's doing that automatically goes, oh, they understand me. They're just like me. And a bonding happens. Okay. You send powerful signals of sameness to another human being. And when that process happens, they bond to you. They cleave to you. They see you as a source of validation, and they start to trust you. Anybody here like to move through the world generating massive trust in everyone they encounter? Would that be useful? Type yes in the chat if you think that might be helpful. This is the interactive portion of tonight's training, by the way, folks. Okay, very good. So why the echo technique? Well, to make a long story short, it is the most powerful way to communicate with another human being. It literally forces a person's neurology to pay attention to nothing else but you. Now, remember, when we're talking about relationships, and I don't care what kind of relationship it is. I don't care if it's a business relationship. I don't care if it's an online relationship. I don't care if it's a familial relationship. I don't care if it's a romantic relationship. Remember that attention is the currency of relationships. When your children act out, 9 times out of 10, they're acting out because they want your attention. When a spouse or a significant other starts acting out or behaving in a way that maybe annoys you, there's a huge percentage of the time they're doing that to get your attention. Attention is one of the most powerful forces in the human being. And once you have a person's attention, you have access to every other part of them. When you use a person's very own words to communicate with them, it literally hacks their nervous system and forces them to pay attention to you. There could be all kinds of other things going on in the environment, but the minute they hear their words coming back to them, they orient on you and they focus exclusively on you. And as a person's focus increases, their level of suggestibility and openness increases. It also eliminates the problem of small talk and boring conversations. By a show of hands, how many of you hate small talk or break down with a case of highs whenever you've got to go talk to somebody you don't know? Right? Congratulations. This is the biggest lifesaver you'll ever have, because the moment a person perceives their very own words coming back to them, they automatically start to open up and they want to elaborate on the words that they've just received. They start talking more. And the longer they talk, the more connected they become to you. Okay? Don't believe me, go out and test this. How many people have actually gone out into the world and used the echo technique with humans in their natural habitat? Show of hands. Okay, I'm missing, one second. I've got all kinds of windows open right now, so I'm trying to figure out where everybody went. Okay. If you haven't, go do it. Just go to a bar, go to a diner where a server can't get away, and just use as many of their words as humanly possible and notice how much time they spend with you. Now, I will warn you, when you do this, you want to make sure that you're as respectful as possible of their time, because if you do this properly, and it's very hard to screw this up, by the way, they will actually spend more time taking care of you than all their other customers, and that could get them in trouble. Okay, so be respectful, but practice this technique on people who, again, I don't mean this in a negative way, but don't matter. People who, don't wait until you're in this important meeting to whip out the echo technique and start trying it on the new boss or the CEO or whatever. Do it, hone your skills on interactions that don't have a large amount of consequence connected to them, so you can prove the validity of this and then build that into your way of moving through the world. Okay. Now, that being said, there's two ways you can look at this echo technique. You can look at it as a persuasion trick, okay, which a lot of people who are on the manipulative spectrum do. Or you can look at it as what it truly is, the gift of deep connection and communication. Okay. You see, when a person gets their very own words coming back to them, it triggers a whole series of neurological processes that human beings, through the process of evolution, are hardwired to be susceptible to. It triggers a set of patterns in them. The first is orientation and attention. The second is openness, connection, and validation. The third is self-disclosure. They'll start self-disclosing and giving you more and more information about themselves because they feel safe with you. They feel like they can trust you. Okay? There may be attraction there, there may not. Echo technique by itself isn't necessarily enough to generate massive attraction, but it opens the door. Okay? And there's a tremendous amount of leverage that you can give through the power of attraction, but you can get even more through connection, trust, and validation. Now, how do we make this distinction between ethical influence and unethical manipulation? It's really simple. What is your outcome? What is the place you're coming from when you deploy this technique? If you think of it as a persuasion trick and you're using it to get people to do something that's not in their best interest, that's manipulation. You understand? And if you're doing it as a trick, it can come across a little bit like mocking. I'll just put that out there. It's very hard to get caught with this, but when you do get caught, that's usually what's happening. Then there's the other side, the influence and validation and authenticity side. When you do this with somebody, you are communicating to them in the way that they are most neurologically predisposed to wanting to be communicated with. Okay? If you move through the world with a sincere desire to make everyone you interact with feel heard, understood, accepted, validated, then it's impossible for you to get caught using this technique. And even if you're doing it from this perspective, the only way to get caught using it is to stop doing it. Okay? So before we move on to the actual demo, actually, let's just go ahead and do the demo real quick. So for many years, I ran a martial arts school. I showed you at the beginning of the training that I was a lifelong martial artist for many years. In fact, we've got once a year, I break out my old uniform and I show some of my systema tricks with a couple of my colleagues from the martial arts. So for those of you who are interested in the energetic and self-defense applications of some of the things we're teaching you here, by all means, come to Secrets of Internal Power next weekend. Not this weekend, but the following weekend, October 17th through the 20th, I think it is. And we'll show you how this stuff actually applies to martial arts and self-defense and protection, right? But one of the things that I did for many, many years, because when I was in Coral Springs, Florida, which is where I had my school, if you went half a mile in any direction, there was another martial arts school. I was surrounded by martial arts competitors everywhere. In fact, 3/4 of a mile down the street from where I was one of the largest karate schools in the world. They had, at that time, they had like between 1,500 and 2,000 students. This is back in the 90s, by the way. So I had to bring every tool that I could figure out to enroll students. And so this is how I developed the ability to have people come in and set an appointment and actually show up. Right? So I'm going to share this with you, and I'm going to do both sides so you can see this. So it sounds something like this. Ring, ring. Good afternoon, Coral Springs Martial Arts Academy. This is David. How can I help you? Oh, hi, David. My name is Bernice, and I saw your sign, and I'm interested in inquiring about karate lessons for my 10-year-old son, Josh. Oh, hey, Bernice. Great to hear from you. So you saw our sign, and you were interested in inquiring about karate lessons for your 10-year-old son, Josh, was it? Yeah, Josh. Yeah. He's been bugging me now for a while to study martial arts, and I always thought it was a little too aggressive. But lately, I've been reading that martial arts is really good for kids, and the reason that I started really reaching out was because Josh is a really great kid. He's really smart. In fact, he's so smart that his teachers moved him up a grade. And I'm worried because he's going in with all the big kids, and I heard that little kids sometimes get picked on. And I just heard martial arts was a good way for kids to develop their self-esteem and their self-confidence and the extra focus that they might need for school. Oh, I see. So you were interested in karate lessons for your 10-year-old son, Josh. You said he's a great kid, and he's smart. In fact, he's so smart that if I understand you correctly, he's so smart that his teachers actually moved him up a grade. That's amazing. And you're worried the big kids might pick on him. You heard martial arts was a good way for kids to develop self-confidence and self-esteem and to focus. Yeah, David, can you help me? Bernice, absolutely. The simple truth is that for hundreds of years, literally hundreds of years, the martial arts has been a way for kids just like Josh, who are small, going into environments where they may be challenged, right, to develop that focus and that self-confidence and that ability to really do well in their studies. It's a great form of exercise, but more importantly, Josh will get the confidence and the focus and the self-defense skills he needs to make sure that those big kids, if they pick on him, are going to be sorry that they did. So my question for you is, what's important to you, other than what you've shared with me, Denise, what's important to you about karate lessons for Josh? Well, it's really, I don't believe in violence, but I think it's important to be able to fend off the bullies and stuff like that. But I really think it would help him to be more confident and just do better in his studies. And I'm really hoping that your program can do that. Our program can absolutely do that. In fact, one of the things you'll notice as Josh comes in and he starts going through the lessons is that each part of the lesson that he gets will increase his ability to focus and pay attention, but it'll also increase his self-defense skills while allowing him to kind of find that balance between the physical and the mental. And as he moves through the training, his schoolwork will gradually improve because his focus is improving, and the way he carries himself because of that physical training will cause people to just avoid him because he's not an easy target. Now, we have a couple of ways that we can go about this. We have an introductory program where it's 2 private lessons and 1 group class, comes with a free uniform. We also have a 2 group and 1 private class, which also comes with a free uniform. Which one of these do you think would be a better fit for Josh? Well, I think the 2 private lessons would be good. Am I allowed to watch? Absolutely, you're allowed to watch. So yeah, I think that might work. So I have 2 time slots available for you, Bernice. I have one today at 5:30, and I have one tomorrow at 5:45. Which would be easier for you? I think 5:45 tomorrow would be easier because then I'm not springing it on him at the last moment. He can get his dinner and have his homework done and have his head clear for the class. Great. I'm going to pencil you and Josh in for tomorrow at 5:45. We'll see both of you with bells on. If you want to stay and watch his private class, you're more than welcome. If you want to drop him off and come back and pick him up and then talk to him about it, you can do that too. I look forward to seeing you tomorrow. You guys have a great day. Give my best to Josh. Thank you, David. We'll talk to you soon. Bye. Okay. Feedback. What'd you learn? What'd you notice? So Arshan says, wouldn't this annoy the person if you use it more than 2 times? Not necessarily, no. In fact, it doesn't. Sounds super friendly? Yeah. Right? How much of what I said was original? In other words, how much of what I said was David? How much of what I said was Bernice? Okay. I use this same 50, okay, 50-50, Arshan says. It was a little bit more than that. I did elaborate a little bit on some of the things, which is lapsing into emotional bonding. You stay focused on what Josh needed most. Okay, very good. About 9 out of 10 people show up when you do that, by the way. And a lot of times it doesn't even have to be that long. I'm a little long-winded today because I haven't hung out with you guys in a while. But the truth is that a lot of times with this, it's just about, you gave her the option. Well, I always give options, right? The hardest close I ever do, believe it or not, The hardest close I ever do when it comes to enrolling clients is, how soon do you want to get started? Or what's the next step we need to take to move forward, right? In this particular scenario, I gave what we call the illusion of choice. I assumed she was coming in no matter what, but I let her choose when that was going to be. But everything I did was about finding out what her value was, what her emotional needs were for her son. Now, in the lessons in part 3, where we talk about emotional bonding, we'll give you the actual process for pulling out a person's deepest emotional needs and linking that to you. Okay. But as a demonstration of the echo technique, that's what it looks like. Shara says only the appraisal was original. Okay. Right. Go back and rewatch the video. Right. And listen to how I began everything I did. Everything I started with was their words. And then I extrapolated. And then I started with their words and I extrapolated. And when I didn't understand something where I thought I needed to, I turned their words into questions. And you'll hear that in my inflection, right? I did a much deeper, much more David level version of this than I normally do. So I gave you guys a lot of stuff to play with. So when you go back and you watch this video, there'll be a lot of things that you can extract from that. But the secret is, use as much of their language as verbatim as possible. Right. I use Arsham. It's not that you were wrong. It's that what I did was I interspersed her words in my prose. That's an advanced version. I shouldn't have done it. Now that the more I think about it, because you're going to try and copy that rather than what I want you to do, which is use their words verbatim. Use their words verbatim, as close to verbatim as possible. Okay. Remember, I don't know what your background is, so I assume you're all fledglings with this. And so I give you the level of training that I give to all new people, which makes you the best at this humanly possible. As you get more advanced and you go through the different levels of training that we have, I'll show you ways to do what I just did, which is camouflaging the echo technique, right? And that, but again, what happens when you start training the echo technique verbatim, it changes the way your brain works. The person doing the echo technique. It forces you to become more able to memorize longer and longer and longer strings of dialogue. And that allows you over time the ability to analyze what you're hearing better to do other things, right? But and what will happen is, as you start to go through that process, your brain will become more discerning and in zeroing in on the words that have deep emotional semantic relevance to that person. Most people coming in don't have that level of sensitivity to be able to pick out the exact words that a person emotionally leans on. So we just capture them all. That way you can't miss. Does that make sense? Type in the chat if that makes sense. Okay. So there's a methodology and a rationale behind what we're teaching you to do and how we're teaching you to do it. You are never going to go wrong with a verbatim technique. You can go wrong ad-libbing. You can go wrong deviating from anything other than their exact words. Okay? Now, the experience of being on the receiving end of this is magical. How many people here have ever been effectively echoed? And how did you feel about that person when they did it? Type it in the chat. Let me ask you, while you're doing that, let me ask you guys a question. As I was, Enrique says, felt listened to, shows you care. Okay, very good. Arsham says it was only once for me, but it was kind of annoying. Okay. Everybody's different. Great level of trust, Jasjeet says. How did my delivery of that process? You know, I understand I was doing both sides, right? Jasjeet says sincere. Jax is saying, you echoed me one time, it feels lighter than someone who doesn't. Okay. Deborah says synced up. And this is the other piece. When I do this technique, I'm doing it from my heart. I'm doing it from my heart. Okay. I'm coming from a sincere place. Because I'm coming from a sincere place, because I know in my heart of hearts that the echo technique is the most desirable way for one human being to communicate with another. By not doing it, I'm being a jerk. Okay. So when I communicate this way, not only do they get their very own words back, which triggers all those processes I named, they feel the emotional warmth in my voice, and that triggers body feelings. And the moment their body feelings shift, the way they perceive the world shifts, and they start to trust more. So when you start to generate a state of emotional authenticity, sincerity, a desire to communicate and be understood and have them understand you, if that's the place that you come from, then everything you say becomes exponentially more powerful. Okay? So the magic, yes, there's magic in the words, but everything that's wrapped around it amplifies that. And remember, one of the first things you'll learn when you come to Killer Influence or you come to CPI is everything human beings do is in response to a feeling. It's either a feeling they want more of or a feeling they want a whole lot less of. Your job is to generate the feelings in you that cause them to have the feelings you need them to have, so they see the world the way you want them to experience it. Okay? The fastest way to change another person's body feelings is to change yours first. So you do that through your posture. You do that through your breathing. You do that through your intention. You do that through the warmth of your voice. And then you use that to deliver their very own words to them. And all of a sudden, your stock starts going up in their world. That's one technique, but there's a whole lot of layers to it. Does that make sense? Yes or yes, as they say. Cool. All right. Let's talk about yes, yes, yes. Everybody's going yes, yes, yes. Okay. So let's have, for this next exercise, what we're going to do is I want to give you an experience of what Bernice experienced, but we're going to do this as more of a self-directed process together. So the way this is going to work, I need you to get out a pen and something to write on. And what I want you guys to do is I want you to think about when you saw the promotions for tonight's class. Okay? There was an influence application that you want to get better at. True or not true? How many of you have at least one application where they want to use these skills? Type in the chat. This is the interactive portion of the webinar. Okay, good. I want you to write that at the top of your sheet, right? And then I want you to write the question. Oops, hold on a second. There's a lot more notes on here than I thought. All right. So you write your application, right? And what do I want? What do I want? Under that, you're going to write what's important about that. And I want you to write the answer to the question, right? So just what I did. The application, so is it dating? Is it sales? Is it marketing? Right? Is it negotiation, mediation, coaching, therapy? Whatever the application is, and then what do you want to be able to do? What's the result you want to have? And I want you to write that. What do you want? Once you write out the answer to that question, I want you to write this question. What's important about that? And I want you to write the answer. Okay? The moment you've done that, type done in the chat, and I'll give you the next phase to this. Okay. Now I'm going to share my screen so you guys can see what we're doing. This is called your emotional motivation checklist. Okay. So what do you want? So for example, maybe the person says, I want to stop being manipulated by men, right? Maybe it's I want to close 35% more sales. Maybe it's I want to up my revenue, up my income by $25,000, right? Whatever it is, I don't really care what it is, but I want you to have it clearly written out what that outcome is. Now, what do you want? Now, let's suppose you have this, right? You got your 25K, right? Or you stop being manipulated by members of the opposite sex or whatever. If you had that, what's it going to do for you? Right? Is it going to keep you safe? Right? Is it going to give you financial freedom? Is it going to make you feel more secure? I don't care what the answer is, just write the answer out. Pay attention when you can to the exact words that pop into your head. And then what's important about that? And you're just going to keep asking that same question, right? So let's look at this again. So we've got the application. What do I want? You're going to answer the question. What's it going to do for you? You're going to answer that question. What's important about that? You're going to answer that question. You're going to write out the answer. So that's number one. Number two, what's important about the answer to this question? So what's important about that? And you're going to write that answer out there. And then you're going to do it again. Ultimately, if I had this, and then I got this, ultimately, what would that do for me? And what's important about that? And I want you to write your answer out. So I just did it just real quick. 1, 2, 3. I want you to make sure. Now, handwrite this if possible. If not, make sure that it's someplace that's accessible to you. Now, I want you to pay very, very close attention. I'm going to put the screen back up here so you can see the template. So this, if you guys want to take a screenshot of this, you're more than welcome to. Right? And the reason that we're doing this is because, I want you to pay attention to the exact words that your brain uses. Because the exact words that your brain uses are the things that will actually take action on and activate stored energy reserves that it wouldn't otherwise activate. Once you've answered all these questions, I want you to type done in the chat, and I'll tell you what I want you to do next. Oops. So Deborah was kind enough to type her needs in the chat, and just to use Deborah's as an example while we're talking here, right? Deborah, if you were to get the ability to read people because you're done believing liars, I'm curious, what would that do for you? Type that in the chat for me. Since I have her on here and she's participating in the chat, I'll just give you a little quick demo. Okay. I don't think she's typing in the rest of her answers anymore. That's okay though. Okay. So, Deborah, if you got this, so you won't be easily fooled. And I'm curious, Deborah, just so I understand you better, pass for promotion. Okay. So if I could give you the skills, Deborah, that would allow you to read people so that you don't have to know, so you no longer have to believe liars, so you would no longer be easily fooled, so that you could stop getting passed up for promotions whenever they come available. If you had the exact skill sets to be able to read people and know exactly what to say and what to do, when to believe them and when not to believe them. Ultimately, Deborah, if you were to have that, if you were to have those skills, ultimately, what would that do for you? What's important about that? What's important about that? Go ahead and type that in the chat. She's typing away over there. All right, if the rest of you type done, you would not be hurt. So as a byproduct of tonight's training, Deborah, I'm going to teach you how to reach into the hearts and minds of everyone you meet so that you'll be able to clarify very, very quickly if their values and yours are a match. You'll understand very, very quickly how they go about satisfying those rules, and it'll give you an ability to read and understand people at a level that most people never truly understand. And as a byproduct of that, you'll no longer be hurt by the wrong people, or it will no longer be hurt by people who don't have your interests at heart. You're going to be able to find yourself able to get promotion after promotion after promotion and no longer be passed up, because you'll know how to speak to the hearts and minds of everyone you meet, so that you know exactly what they want to hear in the way that they want to hear it, exactly what they want to see in the way that they want to see it, so that passing you up the chain, giving you that promotion, is an absolute no-brainer, because you're no longer fooled, because you now have the ability to read people on a level that most people will never understand. And all you really need to do is follow the instructions in the rest of this webinar, and you'll be playing with a level of power and skill and ability that will make sure you'll never be hurt again. Is that something that sounds like of interest to you? Boom. Okay. Now, here's what we're going to do. Deborah's, look at her. She's lighting up like a Christmas tree, folks. All right. So here's what's going to happen. And that, by the way, that's what this sounds like in the real world. That's how you use this. Now, when you go back and you review this video, even though I wasn't visibly on the camera, I was looking directly at both the camera and Deborah's words. I was very, very focused on making sure that I could deliver what I'm promising, right? And the content of tonight's webinar is exactly what Deborah wants and needs. And I promise you, she's on cloud 9 right now. True, not true, Deborah? Yes or yes? Yeah, okay. And most of what I said was her words. But what I did do was I peeled back the emotional armor to the emotional needs that she's seeking to satisfy. Now, should I do that if I can't deliver? No. And that's where we make that differentiation between ethical and unethical persuasion. If, as you elicit the things that a person is their rules for satisfying their needs, you determine that what you have isn't a fit, then the ethical thing to do is point them in the direction of getting those needs met. However, if you determine through the interaction that what you have will get the person what they most truly want, then ethics demands that you bind them to that product or service so that they, in a way that they recognize that their needs are going to be met by doing the thing you want them to do. And that's exactly what I did with Deborah, right? I showed her in her words, in her rules, exactly how learning this process will allow her to get snapshots into people's values, into their rules, into knowing exactly what they want to need to hear, to see, to feel, and for her, and it will give her the ability to match that perfectly. So she gets those promotions, and it's a no-brainer for the people that she interacts with to want to move her up. We're going to do this for each other in a moment. So here's how this is going to work. I want you to get your little sheet of paper, and you should have at least 3 answers to the what's important about question on your sheet. I want you to hold it up at about a 45-degree. I want you all to stand up for this. Now, by the way, if you're driving, don't do this. Right? If you want to participate and experience this, then pull off to the side of the road, put the car in park, pull the parking brake, turn the ignition off, take the key out, make sure you won't be disturbed. Do not do this while you're driving. But for those of you who want to experience what this feels like on a personal level, take the paper, and all I want you to do is read your application and what you want, and then read out loud the answer to the what's important about question 5 times out loud. Read it out loud 5 times. Before you do that, notice how you feel in your body. Okay? And then read this out loud 5 times. Your answers, not Deborah's, right? Your answers, not Deborah's. Read it out loud 5 times and type in the chat what changed in your mind and your body when you read those things out loud. Just type done or just type in the chat when you're done. Okay, Charlotte says done. Anybody else? Enrique says feel more confident, hard to describe. That's normal, right? Who else? Come on, don't be bashful. This is the interactive portion of the webinar. More sure? Okay, very good. All right, so let's review what we've done so far. We've talked about how important it is to use a person's very own words, that a person's very own words are connected to deeper and deeper layers of their own internal world. Deborah says more empowered. Absolutely. When you use a person's very own words, it stimulates every emotional connection directly and indirectly that they have to the words that just came out of their mouth. When you combine that echo technique with this emotional bonding checklist, you marry all those forces together and link very, very powerfully your product, your service, or yourself to their emotional needs. The more you reflect back to them those emotional needs and the rules by which they're satisfying it, the more powerfully they will tend to want to do what you want them to do for their own selfish reasons. So this is a very powerful, and this is one of the core engines of persuasion, both ethical and not, that exist out there. But I'm going to just put this out there, that the way you draw the line is never promise something you can't deliver. As long as you stay on that side of the line, then you'll never have to worry about people stalking you. You'll never have to worry about crossing, people wanting payback or refunds or things of that nature. As long as you can deliver on what you promise, then people will bond to you, and it will create fanatical customer loyalty to you. And that's one of the beautiful things in an age where everybody's trying to Walmart each other, trying to undersell, undercut, do things for less. When you create this level of emotional relationship with people, it creates fanatical loyalty because it generates relationships. And relationships are the most important thing in business, right? We do business with people because of the relationship we establish with them based on our history, right? So that being said, I mentioned that this is the end of part 1. We're going to transition into next steps. How many of you would like to take this skill set even further? Type that in the chat. Yes or yes? Okay, so with your permission, I'd like to show you what I've put together for you. I'd like to show you how everything kind of fits together. We're going to get through that part of the webinar, and then we're going to pick up foundations. We're going to actually drill down into things like authenticity, transportability, identification, reframe, and resistance removal. These are all things that we'll talk about in part 3 of tonight's webinar that will go to what you might have to do if you screw up the first part of the webinar. That makes any kind of sense, right? But these are things that if you combine them all will make you very, very charismatic, very, very trustable. You'll come across as very, very sincere, warm, and empathetic. And people will, I don't want to use the word lust, but they will have a strong need, a strong desire for your approval. And that's a tremendous place of psycho-emotional leverage to have with another human being, right? Which is, again, why I'm emphasizing the ethical applications of this technology. So with that being said, let me share with you what we put together. And I actually dug some stuff out of mothballs that I hadn't offered in a while for this. So what we've got, with your permission, is the Secrets of Human Influence Ultra Persuasion Home Study Course, Deluxe. And it's all about helping you take your life to the next level. It's about making more money, closing more deals, getting more dates if that's something you need, to help more people, to feel more confident, to be more powerful and win the game of life, right? And on the way, you're going to become more charming, charismatic, and irresistible. Now, everything I've put together is only good. This package is a good till October 10th, 2024 at 11:59 p.m. tonight. Certain things will be good until 11:59 p.m. There will be other things that I'm going to talk about that I didn't promote in this webinar that are only good for as long as I'm live on the webinar. So I want you to be very, very close attention. I want you to take advantage of this when it becomes available, okay? So the first thing we're going to talk about is the 17 video 7-stage of universal persuasion protocol home study course. This is going to teach you systematically how to think like a master influencer. The important thing that you have to remember when you're going to become a student of influence is that masters of influence and persuasion think differently than the average human being. They're always thinking on different levels. They're always thinking in terms of outcomes. There's always a certain level of emotional control and state management that goes into this. And you need to understand what those parameters are so that you can function in an environment where you can ethically and honestly influence people to do what you want them to do without feeling sleazy, slimy, like a used car salesman or a lawyer. You know, I train a lot of lawyers, so that this is something that we spend a lot of time on. How do I move through the world emanating a sense of authenticity, sincerity, and charismatic persuasiveness that makes people want to do the things I want them to do for their own reasons? Those are all the things that a master of influence should know and understand. And if you have that ability, then you can read people like a book, and you can know exactly what to say, how to say it, and when to say it. It's a $297 value. We're going to teach you the foundations and the principles of how to control your own psycho-emotional state at will, on demand, so nobody else can control it against your will. This is one of the most important things any human being can have under the belt, whether you're going to be a student of influence or not. If you don't know how to control your own emotional state, and by control, I don't mean repress. I mean the ability to express, transform, manage, or remove negative emotional states and transfer those states to other people when it's necessary. That's what state control is about. We're going to teach you our full day-and-a-half training on how to do all of that. And if there were a Jedi power in Planet David, it would be in our state control training. No one does what we do the way we do it. Nobody can teach you how to control your own emotional states the way we do. You will not find this in any other program. Okay, we're going to teach you how to take that emotional control that you're developing and translate it into powerful rapport skills. Now, most people, they think of rapport as one thing. In our world, we divide it into 3 levels of rapport. We have classic rapport, heart coherence, and we have what we call vibing. Each of these kinds of rapport is useful for certain types of applications and not useful for others. We're going to show you how to go into all three of them, how to figure out which one is right for the application, and how to go in and out of these things on demand and use that rapport to transfer your emotions to other people so that they see the world through the eyes and the lens that you want them to see and experience the world through. That's a big claim, but we do it every single time we teach Killer Influence, every single time we teach CPI or stealth CPI. This is a normal day in Planet Dave. This is basic stuff for us. And if you don't have these skills, then there's going to be a lot of agencies out there who are going to get access to your mind and body that you don't want to have access to. So, how to think like a master of influence, $297 value. How to control your own emotional state so no one else can, $297 value. Power rapport skills for connecting with anyone, anytime, anywhere, under any circumstance, for any outcome, $297 value. But we're not done yet. We're going to teach you the most powerful hypnotic language patterns that exist. Patterns that are so powerful, you can't hear them without your thoughts changing. So powerful, you can't create a thought. You can't create an internal representation in your mind, a feeling, a belief, a daydream, without these things happening. And when you use these strategically, you'll automatically be able to make anything you want, cause anything you want in the minds of your listener, even if those things have absolutely nothing in common. You'll be able to make anything you want mean anything you want in the minds of your listener, even if those things have nothing in common. You'll be able to direct and focus and control a person's awareness so that they only pay attention to the things you want them to pay attention to. You'll be able to prompt, like an AI, prompt a person's unconscious mind to think the way you want it to think. Okay? You'll be able to create powerful three-dimensional images in the minds of your listener that have all these other things embedded in them. Not only that, you'll be able to actually force a person's internal mind movies to be exactly what you describe without any chance of misinterpretation. All that and a whole lot more in these core language patterns, right? And they're super easy once you actually go through the process of installing them, okay? We're going to teach you how to use all of those skills, how to think like a master of influence, how to control your emotional state, how to use power rapport skills and transfer emotions back and forth, how to use these irresistible hypnotic language patterns to manage the emotional states of everyone around you or whoever it is you're seeking to influence for the benefit of everyone. Right? This is part of the 6-stage universal persuasion or 7-stage universal persuasion protocol. It's a $297 value. We're going to teach you how to identify and hijack a person's own internal behavior code. You see, remember I said at the beginning of today's training that everything human beings do has a structure to it. It has a pattern. And if you have the eyes to see and the ears to hear, you can identify those patterns and predict what they're going to do next. And if you understand that predictive aspect and you understand how to identify the pieces of that pattern, you know exactly where to inject change into that pattern to create a different outcome, to create a new behavior, right? That's part of the basic training that you're going to get. It's a $297 value. And finally, we're going to teach you in the most powerful way imaginable how to do with every human being you meet what you saw me do with Deborah, how to emotionally bond anyone's deepest desires to what you offer so that they eagerly volunteer to do what you want them to do for their own reasons and love you for it. That's the beauty of this. There's no high pressure selling. There's no deception. There's no misrepresentation. It's just pure, honest, showing people how to get exactly what they want by doing what you want. Right? You'll become their hero. Right? It's a $297 value. We're going to also include the Killer Influence Mind Control Manifesto. This is a manual that we give every one of our Killer Influence students that includes chapters on social hypnotic operators, meta programs from NLP, how to profile a person in as little as 90 seconds, how to detect lies, how to begin to use attraction generating techniques, how to present tremendous authority in people, how to become more and more connected with people, how to move through the world and generate acquiescence and compliance everywhere you go, how to engineer the environment in a room so that people are automatically more suggestible to you, and a lot more. There's a 220-page manual with nothing but bullet points. So it's really, really powerful. Okay. Plus, you'll get access to an online community, which we'll talk about towards the end of the webinar. Total value on this is $2,497. But I think if you really do the math in your head in terms of what it's going to do and how it's going to change your life, you'll see that it's a bargain at $2,497, right? Think about what just a 25% bump in your current salary or the yearly income would how that would change, right? This is what we're talking about. Think about what a 25 to 35% improvement in your relationships would mean in your life. Realize that what we're going to give you is actually way more than that. Okay, but wait, this isn't all that we're giving you today. This isn't all we're offering you today. If you click the link when it becomes available, when you grab your course now, we're also going to give you some of the most powerful extra bonuses you can imagine. These are amazing. The first one is something that I alluded to at the beginning of the webinar. This is called Weapons of Mass Instruction, also known as CPI Level 2. And it's all about the scientific and seductive storytelling secrets, neuroscience-based methods of telling story and narrative persuasion that cause people to simply believe what you say and do what you want. There's 5 modules in this course. The first module teaches you about the neuroscience of why storytelling works, how it works, how you should be using storytelling to massively influence people in every medium you can imagine, how it's been with us since the beginning of time. We'll talk about neural coupling and why a person's brain automatically goes into trance mode if you just hint that there's going to be a story. The next module will be all about stories for connection, little short stories that you can tell in a line at Starbucks or at the movie theater or at the bookstore that instantly create connection and validation and allow you to begin to generate powerful influence with other people. The next chapter is on alpha stories, or alpha stories are persuasion stories. These are stories that you would use to lead, to motivate, to inspire, to sell, to demonstrate authenticity and connection, to share values with groups of people. Okay, we'll show you how they're built. We'll show you how to use them. We'll give you the training that you need to be effective with them in any theater of engagement and from a persuasion perspective. The next thing we're going to teach you is omega stories. Omega stories are different from alpha stories. Omega stories are stories that you can tell that remove resistance to persuasion. So you can use an alpha story to motivate, inspire, and persuade somebody to buy something. You can use an omega story to remove any resistance they might have to wanting to buy that product or service, or wanting to go out with you, or wanting to soften the judgment or get you out of that speeding ticket. Okay, the whole idea behind omega stories is they don't amplify persuasion by making it more forceful. They amplify persuasion by removing the resistance to anything that might be an objection. Super powerful. In fact, some of the things I'm going to teach you in part 3 of tonight's webinar are drawn directly from this course, but there's a whole bunch more in the course. And then there's going to be module 4. Is it 4? Neuroscience, alpha, omega. Yeah, module 4 is what we call ninja stories. And this is how to use stories as a delivery mechanism for more advanced persuasion techniques. So you have those 7 language patterns I talked about. We'll show you how to integrate those into a story. We can talk about semantic priming, where we use certain categories of words to trigger certain neurotransmitters in a person's brain. You can embed those within a story. We'll talk about behavioral primes, which are little micro programs that you can embed within a story that program somebody or prime somebody to take certain actions or behave and think in a certain way. To quote, I think it was Plato, it basically says, let me tell you how to think about what I want you to think about. That's what behavioral primes do. The next phase to that is we'll talk about the Fantastic Four, which is embedded commands, analog marking, I use shifts, and quotes patterns. These are things that you can embed within a narrative that cause people to become even more motivated to do what you want them to do, right? There's no other program on storytelling like this. I challenge you to find one. Okay. Total value on this is $1,997. We're going to give this to you absolutely free if you click that link before the end of the webinar. So the total value on everything is $4,494, right? But we're not done yet. It's just the first bonus. We're also going to include one of the most powerful trainings we've ever done. This is called Renegade Reframing. It's how to overcome any objection or change any belief in seconds. Let me ask you a rather rhetorical question, if I may. How would your life change if for every limiting belief that you had, every limiting belief your clients had, every objection they might come up with, or any excuse or argument you're faced with, what if you had 14 different ways to beat that objection and change their brain in seconds? How often would you hear yes? How often would people be doing what you want and believing in your cause or your purpose and moving and getting out of their own way if you had 14 different solutions to every problem that came their way before you started combining them? This program is based on a series of patterns known as sleight of mouth in the NLP world, but it's delivered in a much more fun, exciting, and impactful way. It even comes with its own card game that you can play called the Reframe game. Some of my more earthy students have actually turned it into a drinking game, which we won't talk about, but the game actually comes as part of the downloadable manual. It's a $1,997 value. In part 3 of tonight's webinar, I'm going to share with you a couple of patterns from this program, just like I'm sharing a couple of patterns from the first bonus, the weapons of mass instruction, so you can experience the power inherent in these bonuses that we're sharing with you. Remember, I want you to be ready. I want you to be able to go out into the world and move through the world with the power, the charisma, the sincerity, the ability to get what you want the way that you want it for all the right reasons. Okay. So it's a $1,997 value. We're going to give this to you free. The total combined value on this right now is $6,491 if you click that link that's showing up in your chat before the end of tonight's webinar. Okay. Yeah. For those of you in the YouTube room, I'm typing it in for you now. /go. So some of our Zoomers got the link early, so I'm going to make sure that our YouTubers get it too. So Renegade Reframing, how to overcome any objection or change any belief literally in seconds. And then finally, for those of you who want to leverage your ability to persuade and influence, for those of you who want to influence people on scale, either from a stage or from doing presentations, this is the next level in the CPI silo. This is charisma and conversion, hypnotic presentation skills for presenters and public speakers. This is where we take all the skills we taught you in Secrets of Human Influence, all the skills that we taught you in Weapons of Mass Instruction, all the skills we taught you in Renegade Reframing, and we teach you the architecture of public presentation skills. We're going to teach you 2 distinctly different forms of persuasion architecture. Talks that you can use for small groups of less than 20, and talk architecture that you can use for groups of more than 20, anywhere from 20 to 400 to 1,000. They're very, very different. One is a very away from energy that you would use in medical and health settings. Another one is a very heart-centered approach that you would use in any form of spiritual, motivational, sales and marketing perspective. These are 2 very different approaches. One is ideal for small group presentations. The other is ideal for large group presentations. We're going to teach you how to tell stories, how to build those into your architecture of persuasion. We're going to teach you how to do basic stagecraft, how to hold a microphone, how to set up a sound system, how to spatially anchor things, how to deploy powerful stories, testimonials, how to take that information and use it to prime people to run to the back of the room, like you see them do at a Tony Robbins event or a T. Harv Eker event, or a Lisa Sasevich event, or a Robert Allen event, or a John Assaraf event. If you've ever seen, or Dr. Joe Dispenza, if you ever seen him rush to the back of the room, one of the things you need to understand is that there is a system of persuasion that they're all using that they're not teaching or sharing. I'm going to pull back the curtain and I'm going to show you exactly step by step by step how they layer all of these persuasive tactics into their presentation. They're not going to they're using it on you. I'm going to teach you how to use it for yourself. I'm also going to teach you how to become progressively more aware of these tactics so that when you go to a training and you sit in somebody's audience, you're not getting hypnotically programmed against your will or without your knowledge. Remember this is one of the most important things I can teach you as my persuasion student. Without awareness, there is no choice. So I'm going to leave it up to you as to how much of these skills you want to use, but I'm going to teach you the entire system. And I'm going to teach you how to take that content and use it for live events, how to use it for webinars, how to use it for podcasts, how to take that content, create a YouTube channel, create meetups, and how I used that to build my business where I had an 8-month waiting list for clients who wanted to come and see me. That's all in this training. I'm going to share it with you. It's a $1,997 value. I'm going to give it to you free. In fact, one of my little brags, for the past 2 or 3 years, I've had more of my students presenting at HypnoThought's live hypnosis convention than any other hypnosis trainer. I think 2 years ago, I had 8 of my students at the hypnosis convention, all teaching their own stuff using this system. Okay, so for those of you who want to make your living or build your business through public speaking, which I believe is still the most powerful way to build your business, especially if you don't have a big marketing budget. All of these skills are leverageable into any other platform, and if you can do them live, then you can do them on camera. Okay, so $1,997 value. We're going to give this to you free, right? Total combined value on this is $8,488 if you click the link before the end of tonight's webinar. Okay, I want you to win. So I'm loading the deck. I'm stacking the deck in your odds. Something in here is going to change your life, right? So let's just review really quickly what we've got. We've got the 17-video, 7-stage universal persuasion protocol, the Secrets of Human Influence home study course with the Killer Influence Mind Control Manifesto, $2,497 value. You're going to get the Weapons of Mass Instruction Neuroscientific Storytelling Secrets recorded live along with the manuals. So $1,997 value. You're going to get the Renegade Reframing, how to instantly overcome any objection or change any belief, starting with yours, by the way. In seconds, $1,997 value. You're going to get the Charisma and Conversion Hypnotic Presentation Skills Home Study Course, valued at $1,997. We're going to give that all to you for one low, and total value on this is $8,488. But as you can probably guess, we're going to give you a deal, right? And by the way, some of these videos you can't find on our website. They're only available right now through this limited time webinar offer. So if any of the things I went through in the bonuses appeals to you, when would now be a good time to click those links when they become available to you? So for those of you who are ready to click that link, I want to give you the best deal humanly possible. You're not going to have to pay $8,488. Nope, nope, nope. I'm not even going to charge you half price. But it'd be a deal at half price if you think about what it's going to do for your life, right? So you're not even going to have to pay half price. I'm not going to charge you $4,244. I'm not even going to charge you $2,122. That's right. You're reading it right. At the risk of sounding like a carny, right? You can get it all today for one low installment of just $997. And if you need to, you can even break that up into 3 easy payments of just $397 each. $397 each gets you every single thing that I've just talked about and a whole lot more. So all you got to do to get yours is click that link right there, killerinfluence.com/go. As one of my mentors, David Singer, would say, click the link, click the link, click the link. That's from Charisma and Conversion, by the way. You'll learn about that when you watch the course. Okay. So this is what we got for you. It will change your life. I promise you, right? In fact, I promise you so much that if you take this course now and you test drive it for a full 60 days, if after 60 days you're not feeling more confident, more secure, if you're not on the fast track to making more money, getting more promotions, closing more deals, hearing yes a whole lot more, hearing objections a whole lot less, then you let us know. You reach out with an email or a phone call, and we'll give you a full refund. We guarantee your satisfaction with this program. If it doesn't deliver, we're going to give you your money back. So test it. You've got absolutely nothing to lose and everything to gain. This is your chance. This is your golden opportunity to level up your life. And I want to be the one to help you do that. Right? You have us on your side. We're pulling for you. But even we can't multiply zeros. Click that link and we'll get you on the fast track to becoming the person you truly want to be, living the lifestyle you truly want to have. So go ahead and click that link, killerinfluence.com/go. Killerinfluence.com. Click the link, click the link, click the link. Now, for those of you who need a little bit more motivation, if what I just promised you, what I've just guaranteed for you, isn't enough, if you grab your course before 11:59 p.m. tonight, October 10th, 2024, you're going to get everything I talked about. What I'm going to talk about next, you have to grab your course right now before I log off the webinar to qualify for these bonuses, okay? So this is what you're going to get. You're going to get the 3-month trial membership to the NLP Power Mastermind Mentoring Program. You'll remember at the beginning of today's webinar, I said one of the most powerful and most important things that you have that most people don't have to become successful is a community, a place where you can go with like-minded people who care about the things you care about, who want to be able to do the things you want to be able to do, a place where you can talk about these things, you can practice these things, you can get feedback on these things and take them out into the world refined, empowered, honed, and ready to actually deploy them with live human beings in their natural habitat. We're going to give you a 3-month trial membership to the NLP Power Mastermind Mentoring Practice Group. This program, just so you know, was started in October of 2010. So literally, this month is our 14th year. We've been running this nonstop, month after month. We videotaped every single meeting. So it has any topic you could possibly imagine. Everything from dating and attraction to sales and marketing to body language, accelerated learning, hypnotherapy, neuro-linguistic programming, advanced persuasion and influence, psychic skills, energy development, you name it. If it's part of Planet David's rubric, it's in there. Okay. And literally what we do, we get together either virtually or in person, sometimes both, on the 3rd Saturday of every month. And I go around the room and I say, Keith, what do you want to learn? Jules, what do you want to learn? Charlotte, what do you want to learn? Mia, what do you want to learn? Seth, what do you want to learn? Will, what do you want to learn? And I write down the exact things that you want to learn about that day. And I create a lesson plan for all of you on the spot. And for the next 4 to 6 hours, depending on whether we're doing a double long or a single, I drill you on those skills for 4 hours until you can do them in your sleep. And I send you off into the world with a skill set that you can rely on, a skill set that will allow you to win when you absolutely need to win. Okay? You're not going to get a certificate from this program. What you are going to get is a skill set. What you are going to get is a community that supports you and will help you practice, develop, and grow. The other thing that you'll get is unlimited access to the entire 13 plus years of video that we have archived in both the NLP Power website, on our private Facebook archive, and on our private YouTube channel. You're going to have 3 full months, 90 days to binge watch content that's never been seen on YouTube, never been released as a product, never been seen by anyone other than our active mastermind members. We're going to give it to you. If at the end of 90 days you want to stay, most people do, we'll show you how to extend your membership. If at the end of 90 days you got what you needed, we'll give you a big hug, a fond farewell, and you're off to make your world exactly what you want it to be by your standards and your definitions with our blessing. It's a $1,997 value, but we're going to give this to you free simply because we want you to have everything you need to be successful. We want you to have the tools. We want you to have the support. We want you to have the feedback that allows you to win in whatever application is important to you. Total combined value on this is $10,485, but there's more. Now, for this particular class, I actually went into my archive and I found something very, very special. This is something I haven't shared with people in a very, very long time. I don't know if I'll do it again, but for this group, because we were talking to entrepreneurs, because we were looking for people, or we were talking to people who have more of a business entrepreneurial mindset, I decided to whip this out for you guys. This is our Stealth Selling Secrets Instant Selling Power Crash Course. This was a course that I did many, many years ago. I actually co-taught it with my good friend and persuasion brother, the late James Situ. And I really, really love this course. In fact, I have resisted redoing this course just because James is in this one. And I don't want to delete James out of the NLP Power family tree. He was too big a piece. He was too important a founding member of everything that we are. And I love him I miss him to this day. And so you'll get to see him teaching, which is very rare. But this particular program will give you the ability to tap into the deepest desires of your prospects and customers. It'll give you the skills to create powerful and lasting relationships with those clients. In fact, relationships so powerful, most people won't be able to steal your clients away. Your competitors will be wondering what the hell you're feeding these people, because no matter what they offer, they're going to stay loyal to you, right? We're going to give you the knowledge to use advanced techniques of persuasion, like different types of frame control, right? How to be dominant within a frame, how to be a subordinate within a frame, how to be an equal within a frame and still control the frame. We actually go through that. We're going to talk about how to identify and target your prospects' personal hot buttons that cause them to salivate and want to buy your product or service. We're going to teach you how to understand your prospects' buying behaviors and tailor your pitch or your offer to their particular buying strategy. We're going to teach you how to get your customers to rave about your products and services and to their friends and family. And finally, we'll teach you how to tap into the prospect's own subconscious mind and gain their agreement for the sale, for the next level of transaction, for the upsell, whatever it is. One of the fun little anecdotes I have about this class, we had a gentleman in this class that came to us from the world of pharmaceutical sales. And you'll actually see this in the training. And everything we tried to present, he argued with. And what you'll see in this video is every time he comes up with an argument, we're actually using the techniques of the system to overcome his objections and transform him into an eager, willing convert. This guy, literally, by the time he was done, became the top salesman at every single pharmaceutical company he worked for. Now, there's another story there that I want to tell you, which is also relevant to this. He also had the worst job luck of anyone I've ever met. He went into the pharmaceutical company where he worked for. He was a junior salesman. He was rising up in sales. The company went through a reorganization, and canned everybody below a certain level of seniority. And he used these skills to go get another job. And he was working his way up. He was becoming the top salesman. And that company went through a reorganization, and he was out of a job. He used this he went through this process like 3 or 4 times. You would think he would sort for a better company using these skills, but apparently that didn't occur to him. But every time he lost his job, he got another one within a week using these skills. And after being in the pharmaceutical sales industry for a certain amount of time, he realized that he didn't want to do that. And he became such a proponent of this process that every time he came to a training and we were about to teach this, he would literally jump up and down like an overeager kindergartner wanting to teach this. And he would proceed to use this to sell the people in the room their own pen. right? He actually went and created his own coaching business because he realized that no matter what happened, not only did he have the skills to get a new job if he needed one, he also had the skills to turn prospects into coaching clients. And last time I heard, he was working with some of Robbins's people, and he was actually coaching children. So there's a whole story that you get to see the ground floor of in this particular package. And we don't talk about this particular product a lot. And it has tremendous, tremendous value if you're in the business world, right? So it's a lot of fun. You're going to learn a lot. It's going to take everything that you've learned in the other modules and show you what that looks like in business settings and applications, right? And you'll get to see it used on people who actually know what's being done or actively trying to disbelieve it, and it still works. Okay. It's a $297 value. Actually, we're going to raise the price on this because it's worth way more than that. But we're going to give this to you free because we want you to know that this stuff's real. We want you to have the experience of this. Combined value on this is $10,782. And finally, for the next 21 people who click that link right now, I'm going to give you a special VIP live event ticket to our next. Oops, I got the dates wrong. Sorry about that. Our next Killer Influence Live Secrets of Covert Hypnosis Boot Camp is going to be hold on a second. I'm going to give you the actual dates. I thought I'd change that on this PowerPoint, but apparently I did not. Moss and Mia, if you can post the actual dates of the training in the chat for people, that would be helpful. Again, my apologies for the typo. I think it's January 21st through the 25th, 2025. So for those of you who are like, what's David talking about? That's what we're doing. Hold on a second. Let me get back to the PowerPoint. All right. So yeah, just erase this date. I'm learning to use the annotation function. January. Actually, I'll do it this way. January 21st to the 25th, 2025, San Diego. So those are the actual dates. So make sure you write those down. Total value on this is $3,150 value. We're going to give this to you absolutely free. And in this, like I said before, we're going to cover proxemic hypnotic operators, social hypnotic operators, meta programs, 90-second profiling, lie detection, the 7-stage universal persuasion protocol, the most powerful hypnotic language patterns that exist, the how to think like a master of influence, how to control your emotions so nobody else can, how to transfer those emotions and create powerful levels of rapport for people with different applications. We'll even show you how to do this on groups, which is one of the most powerful aspects of this. Oops, that's not going to help me. All right. Anyway, so let's look at what we got. Let me erase this really quick. That's the problem with using the Zoom stuff, is it stays on the screen. So let's review. Okay, got the Secrets of You and Influence home study course valued at $2,497. You're going to get CPI 2, Weapons of Mass Instruction, Neurological Scientific Storytelling Secrets, $1,997 value. We're going to give you the Renegade Reframing Instant Conversational Belief Change home study course, $1,997 value. We're going to give that to you free. You're going to get Charisma and Conversion, $1,997 value, absolutely free. You're going to get the NLP Power Mastermind Mentoring 3-month trial and the archive, $1,997 value. We're going to give that to you free. And then you're going to get the Stealth Selling Secrets, $297 value, and of course that VIP super ticket to the next Killer Influence Secrets of Covert Hypnosis 5-day certification boot camp, January 20th, 21st to the 25th, I think is what Moss was telling us. So all you gotta do now is click your link, and let me just erase some of this stuff. Go ahead and click that link, and we'll get started. So what we're going to do now is we're going to take a short 7 or 8 minute break. When we come back, we're going to transition into phase 3 of tonight's webinar training, where we go through authenticity, transportation, identification, resistance removal, and we're going to customize the content of tonight's webinar to the specific applications that you want to know more about. So it is 5:55 Pacific time where I'm at. Let's take a 7-minute break, use the restroom, grab more coffee, grab more chocolate, or whatever oxytocin-laden substances you happen to be using today, and we'll go from there. Oh, while you're on your break, remember that if you do have some of these courses, we do allow substitutions as long as the price point is equal or lesser value than the one of the courses in this package. You can substitute. You just got to reach out to Moss or Mia and let them know what you want to swap out. We can either make a recommendation, or you can tell us what you want, and we'll tell you how to go about that. Okay? See you in a little bit. Okay, folks, while we're waiting for the rest of our brothers and sisters to get back from their break, if you have questions, type them in the chat. I'm happy to answer. If you guys have requests for anything, by all means, okay. So any sales advice would be great. Julie, everything I've given you today is sales advice. What specific problem are you having that you could use extra sales advice for? All right, let me think about it. Okay. All right. Because like saying sales is like saying exercise, or work. What kind of exercise? What's the issue that we're having? Where we're going with the tail end of tonight's webinar is going to be a little bit more about, I don't want to say the esoteric sides of things, but they're things that aren't well known or that are not taught well to make a person more trustable, if that makes any kind of sense. So Charlotte's asking to help focus. I have to engage, but how can I get engaged in a book like I used to, obviously, but now I react to faith? Okay, so this is a class about influence and persuasion, Charlotte. So maybe asking a question that's pertinent to influence and persuasion would be a better use of your time. Okay. One of the things one of the grudging conclusions I came to many years ago was that the ability to influence and persuade, to get people to voluntarily do what you want them to do, is in our modern society the ultimate survival tactic. Back in the days when we were, dragging people around by their hair and slaying mastodons and things of that nature, it was the physical strength of a person, the health of that person, that allowed them to become to become more alpha, or to rise within the ranks of a society, because they had access to resources. They were bigger, they were stronger, they were faster, they could hunt more, they could kill more, they could provide more. And so people with those attributes in that context, in that environment, they rose to the apex and leaderships within their communities. They became desirable. In our modern society, the ability to influence has replaced brute strength. It's replaced knowing how to hunt and fish. If that makes any kind of sense, right? It's the ability to inspire and motivate and lead groups of people, either one-on-one or in mass. That is the alpha technique, the most prized, the most useful, the most leverageable survival trait or skill set that we can have. Okay, so this is part 3 of tonight's webinar. We're back. So my question for you guys is, what do you guys want to focus on for the last half hour, 45 minutes that we're going to be together? What applications? Now, Julie asked about sales, and I asked specifically, what aspect of sales does she want to talk about? What do you guys want to know about? This is where you get to literally AMA thing. You get to ask me anything, and I will use whatever skill sets I have available to answer your questions. So let's see here. Okay, so Matthew is asking, I've met someone whose English level is quite poor. We mostly use a translator, and it makes it difficult for the echo. She's also very reluctant to go into details when I'm doing 3 magic questions. What can I do? Okay, this is where it gets kind of interesting. Matthew, here's what you do. You echo her through the translator. Okay, so what happens is she's going to speak into Google Translate. It's going to speak it in English. You're going to speak in English, and it's going to translate back into her words. Use as much of her wording as it's translated into English as possible, and Google will feed it back to her through the translator. That's the only difference between doing it organically and doing it through a medium. Okay, but she will still open up. She will still feel more connected to you. Now, where it might get a little bit more challenging for you is in the 3 magic questions segment. Because a lot of times when people want to tell a story, having to wait for the translator and all these other things, it breaks their flow, right? So I would start harvesting her words. And then when she tells a story, you tell a similar story, but you use as many of her words to use it to do it as possible. And I think if you just take smaller chunks and extend your process, you'll get where you want to go. It'll just take longer, right? Don't be in a rush. Don't try to move at the speed that you want to move. Move at the speed at which she's comfortable moving. And I think you'll get your outcome faster. One of the most interesting paradoxes that I've come across in the realm of fast persuasion is that if you want to persuade people faster, slow down. Most people who come through the NLP world are taught that NLP is best done fast. And they translate that to mean that I need to move through the technique as fast as I can. But that's actually not what it means. What that means is that you move as fast through the technique as the subject, the target of your influence can go. If you move at a speed of 5 and they process at a speed of 3, trying to force them to go at a speed of 5 isn't going to get you there. They're going to bail on the process. Okay? But if you can slow down your process from a 5 to a 3 and synchronize with them, you're going to get a much more comfortable, much more rapid, positive resolution of what you're looking for. Right? So the paradox of persuasion is that more often than not, trying to get somebody to move faster actually causes them to dig their heels in and drag it out longer. Whereas when you slow down and you sync with that client, you'll get your outcome faster and they'll feel less manipulated or pressured. So let's see, we got Charlotte here. The aspect of sales when they are more than one in a team and your team argument when doing this. Okay, so all right, better question, Charlotte, but now I need you to get a little bit more granular in your asking of the question. When there's more than one person in a team, then what you need to do is you need to target and identify the group leader in that team. Now, a lot of times, the person asking the question isn't the team leader, but there will almost always be some kind of nonverbal indicator of who that team leader is. A lot of times the person speaking will be the team leader. But look at who there's this thing in body language we call confirmation glances or confirming glances. You see it a lot in interrogations where there's 2 people being interrogated at the same time, where one guy is the obvious alpha, the other is the obvious beta, right? And a good interviewer will be able to target who the alpha is and who the beta is, and they'll target things at the beta because that's the weak link in the chain. And you'll see the beta always looking at the alpha for what to say and what not to say. When you're in a group, when you're dealing with groups, you need to get rapport with the group, but the fastest, most efficient way to get rapport with the group is to find the rapport leader and get rapport with them. Because if you can get the rapport leader in the group to like you, then by proxy and by extension, the halo effect takes over and everybody else will approve of you as well, especially if that rapport leader is well regarded. Okay, so I hope that answers the question. I'm not sure if that's the question you're asking, but that's the one. And in Killer Influence, we have whole drills for that. We have drills on group rapport where you literally have to leave the room. You go into a specific identity state. The group decides who their rapport leader is going to be, and they use specific nonverbal cues that the person outside the room has to zero in on. So the person comes in embodying a certain identity state. They're surveying the group that they're approaching to figure out who the rapport leader is. And then they give a specific body language cluster that I'm going to teach you on this webinar to link and sync with that rapport leader, and thereby getting acceptance from the entire group. Okay. Okay, so that's the first thing. You got to get the group to like you. Now, back in my days when I was working with a lot of people in the attraction and dating community, there was this group process known as befriending the obstacle. And befriending the obstacle was this idea that no matter what person there is that you want to interact or attract, there's almost always one or more gatekeepers, people who are going to interpose themselves between you and the person you need or want to talk to. And you need to find a way to befriend that obstacle, or to get those people to like you, so they'll vet you and let you pass through them to the person you seek to influence. One of the ways that you can hack that is by if you're in a group dynamic and there is an obvious rapport leader, getting that rapport with the group leader first, and then having that rapport generalize to the rest of the room. Let me see here. So Matthew says, I think you're quite right. I was talking about slowing it down. So David Safrostian is asking, can you please explain, if words that come out of a person's mouth have already passed all the filters, what are those filters functionally speaking? There's way too many to list here, but I'll give you the basic idea. You have beliefs that govern a person's mission in life. You have beliefs that are values and rules for getting those values satisfied. You have beliefs about who they are and what they can do in the environment, beliefs about who and what their capabilities are, beliefs about what they deserve. Now, you also have a set of filters that are my history and context, the emotional states that I'm in, what my limitations and traumas are regarding the convert. All of these things are playing a part in those filtering mechanisms, right? This is why you have to be very, very careful when you're using influence skills, that when you deviate too far from a person's exact words. This is why, as powerful as it is, I'm not a big advocate of something called active listening or reflective listening, because what they want you to do in active listening is they want you to take a statement that somebody made and paraphrase it or say it back to them using different words. Well, the problem that you have is those words that you're paraphrasing to are not an exact key to lock fit for the words that just came out of their mouth. And now you've actually entered more possibility for deviation from what you intend them to interpret versus what they actually interpret, the more you deviate from their exact language, right? My job as a teacher is to make the act of influencing as idiot-proof and bulletproof as possible. The more deviation you create in a communication, the more chances you have for mistranslation, misinterpretation, and projection. Right? Projection is always going to happen anyway, but the more you can make sure that what you communicated is exactly what that person wants to hear, the more in alignment you're going to be. Right? But if you were to go look at an NLP book, for example, they would have this very long, very intricate map of all these different types of filters that are going on. I make it very, very simple. You can divide your brain into two aspects. You have the way the world is and the way the world's supposed to be. Information comes from the outside. It's processed as the way the world is. It's filtered through all of our beliefs, our memories, our traumas, our meta programs, our dominant, primary, and tertiary representational systems. And what comes out is an idealized, dumbed down, lossy version of the way the world is supposed to be based on those arbitrary standards and belief systems that we have, right? And that's what you have to work with. And he says, true on the process info. So Keith says, don't need to have a badge, just need to be in union with the one with the badge. Yes, we cover that a lot in Killer Influence and Secrets of Human Influence. So Charlotte says, I do massively, I'm assuming she meant deviate. I must try without that. Okay. What other questions do you have before I start arbitrarily giving you topics to talk about? Okay. So before we move on into the things I had planned to talk to you about anyway, let's go ahead and just review. If you're on the fence, what would now be a good time to grab one of those remaining packages? Remember that the VIP tickets don't expire. So if for some reason you can't make the January training, just let us know. We'll move you to another training. If you've already had Killer Influence and you have somebody that in your life that you think would benefit from attending a 5-day event, you can gift that ticket to them and they can attend for you. If your schedule frees up at the last minute, but the training's sold out and you have a VIP ticket, we'll make a seat for you. If you can't come at the last minute, just let us know. We'll move you to another training. If we raise the price between now and January, you don't pay a dime more to attend that training. Okay, so you're going to get the Secrets of Human Influence home study course valued at $2,497. You're going to get Weapons of Mass Instruction, $1,997. We're going to give that to you free. You're going to get Renegade Reframing, Instant Conversational Belief Change and Objection Mastery, $1,997 value. You're going to get Charisma and Conversion valued at $1,997 value. We're going to give that to you free. You're going to get 3-month trial membership to the NLP Power Mastermind Mentoring Program. You're going to get a copy of the Stealth Selling Secrets home study course, $297 value. And you're going to get that 5-day VIP ticket. Total value on this is $13,932. If you were to buy them individually on the website, you can get it all for just one low installment of $997, or you can break that up into 3 easy installments of $397 each. All you got to do is click the link, www.killerinfluence.com/go. It's www, hold on a second, http://www.killerinfluence.com/go. And we'll go ahead and put your name into the database and you'll get all that good stuff. All right, so let's review really quick. We talked about the echo technique, right? The objective for this was how to ethically and instantly connect with prospects on a deep emotional level. So we talked about the echo technique, but we also talked about other things as well. We talked about authenticity, right? Let me just use the text for this. We talked about authenticity. We talked about sincerity. We talked about entering the conversation in the mind of the listener. Okay, these are all things that relate directly to our ability to use the echo technique effectively. But there's more to it. Many of these things work because they signal something inside of the human nervous system we call sameness. So this is where we get a little bit politically incorrect. Sameness is related to this idea we call the identification principle. You've all heard this in one form or another. How many of you, by show of that's me in the chat or me in the chat, have ever heard the expression, people like people who are like themselves? How many of you have heard that expression? Okay, good. Here's where the art of influence and persuasion deviates from the idealism of our modern society. And what I mean by that is this. I don't care what your ethnic background is. I don't care what your religious background is. I don't care what your gender of origin is. I don't care what you think you like. Here's what I know. The human nervous system always feels more comfortable around nervous systems that are similar to itself. Let me say that 2 more times. The human nervous system, your nervous system, your unconscious mind, always feels more comfortable around other systems that are identifiably like itself. To put it bluntly, your nervous system is moving through the world, projecting your inner environment on the external world and looking for the things that match and the things that don't match. It pays attention to both. The things that don't match gain more attention because they're potentially dangerous. The things that do match gain attention because they're safe, familiar, and comfortable. So we're moving through the world, sorting into sameness and difference, sameness and difference, sameness and difference. And some people will automatically emphasize the differences in people. Some people will automatically emphasize the sameness in people. But it really doesn't matter because we're doing both all the time. Now, one of the things that you'll learn about in CPI 2, which is all about storytelling and metaphor, that when you're telling a story and you want that story to have the maximum amount of impact, the protagonist, the hero of that story, has to be as much like the person hearing the story or watching the story as humanly possible. The more points of connection, the more points of sameness that you have between the protagonist of the story and the audience of the story, the more transportability you will create. Now, transportability is a hypnotic phenomenon. It is a measurement of an ability for someone to become completely absorbed into a story or narrative. Okay, in fact, I'll give you a definition of it right here. Hold on a second. Let me go ahead and share my screen really quick. By the way, the reference book for this is Resistance and Persuasion by Dr. Eric Knowles. And these techniques would be considered omega strategies. So these are resistance removal techniques. Transportability is the tendency for an individual to become deeply immersed or transported into a narrative. Okay? This immersion can lead to a reduced critical analysis of the message and an increased likelihood of accepting the narrative's influence. This is where it gets really cool. Narrative persuasion, storytelling, is never consciously perceived as an attempt at influence. And when the storyteller just implies that there's going to be a story coming, your brain automatically starts to trance out. It starts to go into what we call neural coupling. Neural coupling is this form of brainwave entrainment that happens when a story listener is focused on the storyteller. And so what happens is the storyteller starts telling the story, and the listener starts to sync. And then eventually they start moving at the same speed. But what happens is as the listener falls deeper into rapport, their brain starts to speed up and they start predicting and anticipating what's going to happen next in the story. This phenomenon is known as neural coupling. Now, depending on how you construct your story, you can amplify the transportability factor in the story. Okay? So notice that one of the very first pieces of the transportability process was the reduction of critical analysis of the data being presented. This is really important because when a person is powerfully transported into a story, and here's the thing, people cannot not be transported by a story. It's a question of degree. The two things that matter most in transportability is A, how well constructed is the story? How identifiable is the protagonist? In other words, the protagonist, the hero of the story, how similar is the protagonist of that story to the person hearing or listening to the story? And then the final piece is delivery. How well can you deliver that? How congruently can you deliver it? Right? These are all things that will dramatically impact the power that a story has over the person hearing it. Okay? This is why I tell all of my Killer Influence students, all my Secrets of Human Influence students, if you want to be the best hypnotists on the planet are actors. Okay? Their entire craft is geared around one thing, creating a whole different world and sucking you out of yours and into theirs. And that's the craft of a hypnotist, is to create a world that is of their design, where you get to interact and behave in a certain way and have certain types of experiences that allow you to change how you view the world when you come out of it. And that's what good storytelling does. Okay? Questions on transportability and identification. By the way, those are all in your Weapons of Mass Instruction bonus course. Everything you need, including a checklist, a list of questions to troubleshoot your narrative, everything you need to embed in the story, how you need to tell it. That's all in your Weapons of Mass Instruction home study course, right? But these are the three biggest pieces, really, if you think about identification, transportability, and delivery, that allows the story to be truly effective. Okay. So questions on that? Nothing? All right, let me look at my little okay. No questions? You guys are smart. What else do you guys want to know about? Julie, did you ever figure out what your question was? So is that like creating an in-group that not everyone can join for a minute? That's a really good question. So, and this goes to marketing. The problem that a lot of people have when they're promoting their business or they're seeking to influence people is they're trying to influence too broad a population. Good marketing, good selling, good therapy is about distilling your tools of influence down to a very narrow band of either one person or a subgroup of people. So all good marketing and sales is about segregation. It's about discerning one group from another group, what their needs are, how they recognize it, what their rules are, what their values are, and feeding and speaking to those rules and those values and those socioeconomic parameters, their marital status, their religious status, their economic status, right? Finding that and speaking to it. Finding it, stepping into their life and figuring out what their challenges are, what their pain points are, and getting their attention. This group A may be very different from group D, right? And the process is going to be the same, but the product of that process will be different for each and every group that you're speaking to. So to your question, creating an in-group that not everyone can join for a minute is true enough to be true. But it's not that they can't join. It's that they just don't naturally fit in that box. It's a square peg in a round hole. We always want to match. Remember the identification principle. And this is something that, whether you agree with me ideologically or not, this truth is evident in the findings of many different persuasion and influence sciences from many different sources. I'll start with you. Kenrick Cleveland, in his work on maximum rapport, talked about using a person's very own words and why it trumps everything. David Grove, in his studies on clean language, discovered the exact same thing from a therapeutic context. Chris Voss discovered that using a person's very own words creates tremendous rapport, even in people who are the bad guys, the worst of the worst, the hostage takers. Okay. Alexander Penland over at Stanford University, in his discovery of 4 honest signals: mimicry, influence, activity level, and consistency and variability, discovered that when people actively mimicked and copied the person they were interviewing with or interacting with, their compliance and their pay raises and their getting hired was boosted by as much as 30%. Wendy Patrick, in her studies in the book Red Flag, she talks about how if you go shopping at a mall and you buy a fancy watch or a pair of shoes and you get on the bus to go home, and seated on that bus is somebody who has the exact same watch or the exact same shoes that you just bought, the chances of you going over, sitting next to that person, actually starting a conversation go up astronomically. Why? Because our nervous system is moving through the world searching for itself. It sorts for what's familiar, and what's most familiar is what's inside of you. And that's why you always feel more comfortable around people who have as many things in common with you as possible, right? I don't make the rules, I just report them. So if you want to influence, you need to understand how pervasive this and I coined the term identification principle. This is how pervasive it is, right? Yes, I believe in diversity. Yes, I believe in inclusivity. But here's the truth: your nervous system doesn't. You'll always feel more comfortable around people like you than you will about people who have obvious differences. I don't make those rules. I just report them. You can use it or not. You can rail against it or not. But this is the truth. Okay. So Julie's asking, the question is how to handle I need to think about it. Okay. So you don't want them thinking about it. You want them feeling about it. When you start tapping into a person's emotional needs, they will generate the exact trance logic they need to justify acting on that impulse. Now, the only time you will get and I need to think about an objection is when you miss the value, when you miss the criteria, right? The only other time that might come up, and it's usually not the real problem, is when the price is way too high. But I haven't even found that to be a very big barrier. When you've got the values locked in and you've bonded what they want and need to what you offer according to their rules, in the way that they've done it, they'll find a way to get the money. They won't need to think about it. Okay. So that's my first answer. Hit them in the values and keep doing it. Right. The second thing is that can be really create an I need to think about an objection is you get too over eager in trying to close the sale. In other words, you see them biting, you see them getting excited, and then you get excited and you just go for a high pressure close, right? How do you deal with personalities that are when they're logical? Okay, I don't, because nobody's personality is that logical, right? When you're unlocking values, guys, logic goes out the window. People don't make decisions based on logic. They make decisions based on their feelings and justify it with logic. Okay. But since we're on the subject of I need to think about it, let me give you a few ways to think about it. Now, this gets into Renegade Reframing, which is another one of your bonus courses. So there's 2 or 3 reframes that I like to teach people that are my favorites. The first one is called a redefine. So when somebody gives you an objection, what they're giving you is basically a belief. Now, beliefs have three pieces. They have a cause, they have an effect, and they have a meaning. So if I say, someone says, I need to think about it, right? They've given you the effect, but they haven't told you why they need to think about it, right? They haven't given you the cause. So if someone says, I need to think about it, you can just look at them and say, great, because, right? So Julie, since you're on the chat, you play with me really quick. So I've just offered you the thing you said you most wanted that would make the greatest degree of change in your life. I'm assuming I've done my work properly, right? And you tell me I need to think about it. And I look at you and I say, great, you need to think about it because, and answer my question. Just type whatever comes into your mind, Julie, and I'll show you what this looks like. It's a lot of money. You're right. But maybe it's not that it's a lot of money. It's just that you haven't realized how much value and how much transformation this is going to be in your life yet. Is that possible? Right? Or I need to think about it. Well, I'm curious. Maybe it's not that you need to think about it, but rather you need to really decide if it's what's more important to you, the money you're going to invest or the change you're going to get. Okay. Now, what I did there is called a redefine. The simple structure of a redefine is it's not X, it's Y. But what I had to do first, and by the way, did you notice the way I presented the reframe? I didn't say, well, it's not this, it's this. I didn't beat you over the head with it. I said, well, I'm curious. Is it possible that it's not X, it's Y? That's called softening. And when you deliver a reframe in the form of a question, it completely flies under their defense mechanisms and they have a perspective shift in a matter of seconds. Right? And then what I did on the second part, I did what we call hierarchy of criteria or hierarchy of values reframe, where I asked, well, which is more important? The money or the massive transformation you're going to enjoy as a byproduct of this training? And now you're asking them to do a simple evaluation. Do they want the change or do they want to save the money? Right? And your job, by the way, is not necessarily to get them to say yes. It's not to manipulate them into doing something that's not right for them. Your job is to guide their thinking process to where they can make the best decision for themselves. Most objections are not the objection that comes out of their mouth. Most objections are an unanswered question. That because a need hasn't been satisfied, a need hasn't been elicited, and it hasn't been linked to. But I'm here to tell you from the bottom of my heart that when you actively link to a person's emotional needs and you do it right, you don't get objections. The only time you'll get an objection is when you've missed the value or you violated a value, right? And after a while, your sensory acuity will get really, really sharp to the point where the moment you say something, you'll see the micro expressions and you'll know that there's something there that you need to elicit and clear it before it comes out of their mouth. Okay. But the simple structure is in order to do a reframe, you need to elicit both sides of that belief. So phones, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Phone sales, you'll hear it in their voice. You'll hear it in their pauses. You'll hear it in the consistency and variability of their tonality. This is why studying Alexander Penland's work on honest signals is really, really powerful for those of us who are not going to be working through a visual medium, because you can hear consistency and variability in their nonverbals. Okay. Anybody have any other questions about what I did or how I did it, or want to try their luck? No? You guys want to throw out another objection and I'll change it for you? Yeah, Julie, for what you're doing, you absolutely want to get both CPI2, which is weapons of mass instruction, but spend a lot more time on emotional bonding checklist, which is in your CPI and killer influence 1, and then look at the renegade reframing and the 14 reframe patterns, softeners, and that inquisitive kind of reframe installation. Okay, well, I'm curious, how happy would your husband be with the changes you want to make? And maybe it's not that you need to discuss it with your husband. Maybe it's actually you're just afraid of your husband and you're not ready to make that change yet. Would that be possible? And thinking about it like that, what's more important to you? Getting the life you want or dealing with your husband? So Charlotte's saying if someone says, I'm treating them like I don't appreciate or like them when I do like them. Okay. So, well, it's not that, look, me treating you this way doesn't mean I don't like you. It means I'm focused on something else that has a higher priority so I can spend more quality time with you. Right? So notice the structure of the reframe. It's not the X, it's the Y. Right? So if someone says I'm treating them like I don't appreciate them, I might say, well, I'm curious. You think that way because, but you actually gave me both ends of the belief, so I don't really need to elicit that. Right? It's not that I don't like you or appreciate you. It's that I'm focused on something else that has to take priority so that I can spend more quality time with you. Right? To use a hierarchy of criteria reframe, I could say, well, I'm curious. It's interesting that you feel that way. I'm curious. What's more important to you, thinking that I don't appreciate you or looking below the surface to what I'm actually doing so that you realize I'm actually trying to spend more time with you and show you how I appreciate you? Which is more important to you? You guys hear what I'm doing? You understand the structure? Which is more important to you, the X or the Y? Where the X is almost always something you want them to move away from, something you want to move towards, or the X is something you want to move towards, the other is something you want to move away from, right? A lot of your persuasion and influence and body language, nonverbal people reading skills will distill down to one of two choices, towards or away from. People are always moving towards something and away from something, or away from something and towards something. Your job is to categorize their behaviors as one or the other. Okay. Okay. So Forex Madly says, I want to get some bids from other vendors. Great. And I think you should absolutely get those bids from other vendors. But I'm curious about something. What's more important to you? Wasting your time shopping around trying to get to save a few cents, or saving your valuable, precious time by getting exactly what you asked for right here? Angel says, I love you, David. Now, that's a simple hierarchy of criteria reframe. And again, the reason I chose that particular reframe for tonight's training is because the first part of tonight's webinar was all about getting to a person's values, the what's important about question. In the reframe I'm using, I'm asking the same question. I'm asking you to compare two different values. And which one's more important, with the one that's more important being the one that leads to the outcome I want you to have. Keith says, I want to find another mastermind group. And Keith, I think you're absolutely entitled to go look at as many groups as you want. But I'm curious, what is it about other mastermind groups that you think you're not getting here? Matthew says, what was Alexander's last name? Oh, Pendleton or Penland, Penland. He goes by Sandy Penland at Stanford. Like it works for good and clear the other way because moving toward, yes. Everything that, again, my job with, again, like I said at the beginning of the webinar, if this is the scope of everything there is to learn in the field of human influence and persuasion, we got time for this much. Part of my job as your teacher, your guide on this, is to make it easy for you, to make it simple. And one of the things you'll find as you sort through ton after ton after ton of persuasion nomenclature is that 99% of everything can be sorted into towards and away from. And when you start sorting from that filter, a lot of things get really, really obvious and they get really, really simple. But there's a process we all go through to reach that epiphany. I can shorten the learning curve, but I can't remove it. And that's why I gave you this webinar for sure, but also the package that I gave you is because it's the fastest way I know to shorten that learning curve and move you from 0 to hero, from beginner to expert and master in the shortest amount of time possible. You need a community that supports you. You need a live training for full immersion. You need feedback and support from the administrative side of things. You need content and products that you can reference when you're not in one of those other training areas. And you need to be able to apply it directly into your life in small pieces so you can measure the effects. And that's why we're giving you the things we're giving you. I don't want you to believe everything I'm telling you just because I said it. I want you to go out, take the echo technique, take the emotional bonding checklist, take the reframe patterns that I've just showed you, look at transportability and identification and how those all work together and use them, play with them, watch what happens and the level of compliance and rapport and connection that you get as a byproduct of this training and the content and the courses in it, right? All right, let's see. Last round of questions, and I'm going to do, all right. Save link as, oops, that's not it. Hold on a second. Okay, so last call for the package. So once again, remember that the fast action bonuses, the 3-month mastermind training, the stealth selling secrets, and the 5-day VIP ticket, they all go away when I log off the webinar. Okay, so here's what you get tonight for one low installment at $997. You're going to get the Secrets of Human Influence home study course, valued at $2,497. You're going to get the Weapons of Mass Instruction, the scientific and seductive storytelling secrets, the neuroscience of narrative persuasion, $1,997 value. We're going to give that to you free. You're going to get Renegade Reframing, the Art of Conversational Belief Change and Objection Mastery, valued at $1,997. We're going to give that to you free. You're going to get Charisma and Conversion. This is going to be the hypnotic presentation skills for presenters and public speakers, $1,997 value. You're going to get, as your fast action bonuses, by clicking that link right now, you're going to get the NLP Power Mastermind Mentoring 3-month trial program, $1,997 value. We're going to give that to you free. You're going to give the Stealth Selling Secrets home study course. That's the addendum to our Stealth CPI program, $297 value. We're going to give that to you free. And then finally, you're going to get that 5-day VIP ticket to the next certification boot camp for Killer Influence, Secrets of Covert Hypnosis, the #1 NLP training program in the world, 4 years running. It's a $3,150 value. We're going to give that to you absolutely free. The total package value here is $13,932. You can get it all for one low installment of just $997, or you can break that up into 3 easy payments of $397 each. All you got to do is click that link in your chat right there, www.killerinfluence.com/GO. Click the link now before it goes away, and we'll go from there. So just to answer Keith's question, many in my area could use the physical, mental, emotional, and financial leveling up massively. I wish to start a mastermind group. Okay, great. I highly recommend you do that, Keith. If you want to start a mastermind group, do it. One of the fastest ways to level these skills up is to teach it. And I encourage it. I absolutely 100% encourage you guys to do that. All right. So click those links right now before I log off. If you have questions, reach out to Moss or Mia, Moss at NLPpower.com, Mia at NLPpower.com. You can call 858-282-4663. And for you guys in the YouTube chat, 858-282-4663. Right? And by all means, please leave your contact information. If you leave your contact information, then you'll at least qualify for the bonuses. If you don't leave your contact information and you try to get them tomorrow, it ain't going to happen. So by all means, please, please, please leave your contact information. All right. That's all I got for today. In the words of the immortal Carol Burnett, I'm so glad we had this time together just to have a laugh or sing a song. Seems we just got started, and before you know it, comes the time we have to say so long. Good night, my friends. I love you. I'm your guide. I'm your teacher. I'm your friend. I'm your mentor. Please click those links, join the party, and let's get you to the apex of that persuasion pyramid in the shortest amount of time possible. I love you. Good night, and God bless. Take care.